Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 5. Antakale chamameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra sangsayah. Empty a little of this out. It's too much in here for me to pour it. Translation. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Report. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree. Toror iva sahishnuna. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, so that at the end of one's life one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshva Om Ninitam Nina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Garim Yakripatamaham Bande Shri Gurandina Tarana Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nivashesha Sanyavari Pastichade Satarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. This verse is about remembering Krishna. I've been speaking about this topic. Of course, we should always not only be speaking about this topic, but we should be practicing. But speaking about is one form of practicing. But Krishna consciousness is, as Prabhupada explains, is a sort of cultivation. Although it is the natural state of consciousness for every living being, in our covered condition, this natural state needs to be brought out. Certain activities or associations act as a catalyst to bring out this natural state within us. Certainly, one of them is through the association of Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. Krishna consciousness can be evoked or brought out from within the heart. But although it is natural, as we understand from teachings of Srila Rupa Goswami, that in the beginning stages, one has to practice. The effort to practice Krishna consciousness is meant to help us to gradually realize the benefits of the natural state of Krishna consciousness. And as Prabhupada explains in this commentary, he says there'll be many impediments for a person who is always endeavoring to chant Hare Krishna. There are many obstacles along the path. But for those who have at least captured a glimpse of what Krishna consciousness could be like, for those who've had the opportunity to even taste a moment of Krishna consciousness as a result of help from the Lord within the heart, or as a result of association with devotees, then this glimpse, called Abhasa Rupa, it's a slight glimpse. It's something that doesn't remain steadily awakened within our consciousness, but it's a glimpse that gives us a slight opportunity to become aware that there is a state of consciousness which is far superior than our conditioned state, our daily state of consciousness, when the mind and senses are absorbed in external affairs which are simply related to the body and to the associations with the body. That little glimpse, that little taste, is meant to act as the catalyst or the inspiration, the awakening of a desire. Prabhupada uses this word awakening a lot. Awakening of that natural propensity. It's sleeping, but it needs to be awakened. And association, of course, all forms of association, is what gradually awakens this natural state. And in that natural state, one experiences a happiness, pleasure, and relief from distress. So many benefits are there. A happiness which is described by Lord Rishabdev, which is transcendental to material happiness, and Brahma Saukyam, which continues forever. So it begins with a glimpse, and it increases more and more when we make an effort ourselves. We may get a glimpse by the mercy of some association with a devotee, by some sukriti. Sukriti means that by coming in contact with a devotee, and by his strong preaching, it may awaken a little glimpse, like it's described in the Bhagavatam, the value of a moment's association of a devotee of the Lord cannot be compared to elevation to heavenly planets, to liberation from matter, or to worldly prosperity. One moment's association can bring one to the point of capturing that glimpse of that superior state of consciousness, and then once having experienced it, that little hankering is awakened within the heart, a desire to taste it again. Especially once having tasted it, oftentimes one can experience that once having tasted it, it's very difficult to extract the same pleasure from the ordinary worldly affairs that we've tried to taste, or which Prahlad Maharaj has called punak punaschavata chavananam. He calls it chewing the chewed. Matirna Krishne Parataks Vatova. And he describes that persons who are very addicted towards sense gratification, who are inclined towards sense gratification, they make progress of towards hellish conditions of life, and they repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations towards Krishna cannot be aroused either by their own efforts, by the efforts of others, or by a combination of both. Chewing the chewed. But one actually gets a little glimpse of that higher taste, and it surpasses that chewing the chewed experience. It's something different, unique, transcendental, pleasurable. And one awakens by that contact a desire for increasing and experiencing more and more that state of Krishna consciousness, which was even from one moment relished. So as I said, we've been speaking about this topic, particularly lately, and I spoke about this the other night, but I actually was thinking about speaking it again, about it this evening, but presenting it in a different light. But it's a very good example, and it's an example that's kind of made a deep impression upon me about the kindness of Krishna, the kindness of the Lord within the heart, and the benefits derived from practicing Krishna consciousness, especially by always endeavoring to think about Krishna, to speak about Krishna, and to remember Krishna. And I'm going to speak a little bit about my god sister again. I had some more experiences yesterday. I was at the hospital with her. And I'm going to relate just a few simple examples of how Krishna has acted within the heart in such a way to make himself very readily available to a sincere devotee who has faced obstacles, very difficult obstacles she just recently faced. She had a stroke, and according to the doctors, it wasn't the first. She's had several. And it took place before this one. And this is just simply the cumulative effect of the previous ones. So that could be perceived as an obstacle, but not from Mother Isha, as I will explain why. Any of you know Mother Isha? Raise your hand. Yes. She's been a devotee for maybe 35 years. She's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She lived in Bombay for some time. She used to transcribe Srila Prabhupada's lectures, and she took care of Tulsi Devi. And she returned to America. I can't remember what year it was. And she's been living for quite some time in Hyannis, not far from here. And she, up until maybe 1 or 2 years ago, when it was becoming increasingly difficult for her to come to the temple, she was coming to the temple quite regularly. And for anyone who knows Isha, here's a woman who can't speak about anything except Krishna. I've never heard anything else come out of her mouth. And it's in a very simple and pure state. It's just like, she'll just stop somebody on the street and says, "Can you say Hare?" Now say Krishna. And then she'll talk about, Vrindavan, Krishna, and the cowherd boys. And it's sometimes for a person who's just not capable of being transcendental, they might feel embarrassed. They might wonder, I don't know this woman or something. But this is Isha. She's 89 years old, and whenever she comes to the temple, she's either done some service back in Hyannis, and she's brought some things that she's made for the devotees. She's made Prabhupada hats. She's made aprons. She makes pot holders. The list. She's serving, always thinking of ways of serving Krishna. Although she doesn't live here, her mind's always with Gopi Ballava and the devotees who are serving him. And when she goes on the street, she's always preaching. And in fact, and as I mentioned the other day, she's befriended a woman, I don't know how she, maybe she's in her 40s, and who she met 15 years ago, who used to work in a health food store, and Isha happened to go always to this health food store because she always is very careful about what she purchases to offer to Krishna. And she just started speaking to this girl, and this girl became very captivated every time Isha would come in, and then Isha, of course, in her usual method of speaking about the normal course of affairs. For her, the normal course of affairs is Krishna's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He plays a flute, and we're meant to chant his names and be happy in Krishna consciousness. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. That's the normal course of affairs. Anything else is just superfluous. It's not connected to reality. This simplicity is I mean, for anybody who's aspiring for Krishna consciousness, they have to be attracted to it. And it's like I gave an example the other. I know I didn't mention this point the other day, but when I first went to see her, she had a stroke last Wednesday, a week ago Wednesday, and she lost consciousness completely. And she was taken to the hospital, and it was in intensive care, and finally she came back to consciousness. But when she first came back to consciousness, she couldn't even open her eyes, and the doctors weren't aware, at least at that time, how much damage had taken place. And now, in the course of the last week and a half, it's not conclusive, but definitely a portion of her brain was damaged. And she has, memory is not there. Memory of what? I will explain. But memory is definitely there because as I will speak about and relate, that Krishna in our heart definitely has not allowed Isha in any way, shape or form to forget him. Although, if you talk to her about it, so many other events, like Yamuna Jivana was with me yesterday. She doesn't remember most people. She didn't remember where she lives. She remembered me, actually, when she saw me, but I don't know why. But she's Niranjana Swami. I was so happy when I first arrived. And she seemed quite happy. She had a smile that was so childlike. I mean, she looked like, but when she smiled, like, it illuminated the whole area. And she had a few of those yesterday, too. But I sat down when I first came, and I smiled. I said, "So nice to see you, Isha." She just smiled. And I said, "Is everything okay?" And she just said, "Well," she's very slow to respond. As the doctors have said, that it's part of the damage that was done to the brain. She can't respond quickly. And when she does respond, and most times she just looks, and then if it's about anything external, her usual response is, "I can't remember that. I can't remember that." Like, she can't remember details. So when I asked her, is everything okay? She said, "Well, you know me. I can't complain." And that was Isha. I never heard a complaint come out of her mouth in 35 years. It just, her word it doesn't even exist in her vocabulary, complaint. She just won't complain. Everything for her is, what's one of Isha's famous sayings, 2 words. Can anyone tell me who knows her? Krishna's mercy. Right? No, it's not pretentious in any way. As far as Isha is concerned, Krishna's mercy. So if somebody who always sees everything as Krishna's mercy, how can they complain? And she never did. She would never complain. So I asked her, is everything okay? I can't complain. And then I said, well, is there anything you need? I can't complain. Prashadam? Big smile. I can't complain. I could sense that she wanted some prashadam. So, and then someone came over. I mentioned this the other night, and who had seen her previously, and asked Isha. He said, "Where are you from?" And she said, "My home." And the nurse who was working said, "Yes, your home." And she said, "My real home?" Of course, for the nurse, it's like, yeah, of course, your real home. But she didn't say it that way. She just said, "Yes, Vrindavan." And she looked at her, the nurse looked at her and she said, "Wisconsin?" It's like she couldn't, the word Vrindavan was not part of her vocabulary. She didn't know what it was. And then Isha was going to start speaking, I could tell, but somehow the woman, her attention span was even less than Isha's. And and she got sidetracked and Isha didn't continue. And but so many things she doesn't remember, and faces she doesn't remember. But anything that's connected to Krishna, she seems to remember very clearly. You know, she can't. She requires help. She needs assistance walking. Like yesterday, right? The japa beads. Gita Priya was saying if she only had a camera at that time. Because Isha's japa beads had been broken. She doesn't know how, they might have broken when she fell. And a lot of the beads were strewn about and they weren't picked up. Because she lost consciousness and they found her on the floor, unconscious. And so when all the beads were gotten together, there was, I think, 80-something beads. There were quite a few missing. So she didn't have anything all this time to chant on, all those. She was chanting, because the first day I called her, and the first thing she did is, she doesn't know how to answer the phone. But this girl, Sandy, was there, and she picked up the phone, and she started speaking. She said, "Would you like to speak to Isha?" And she handed the phone to Isha. And the first thing is, Isha picked up the phone, she said, "Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." All glories to Srila Prabhupada. First thing is she got on the phone. So, anyways, yesterday, Yamuna Jivana was very kind and when saw that Isha was beadless, he offered his beads and said, "Maybe I can give my beads." And Isha took them. And when she took these, she immediately, she put her hand right in, and she looked like she looked like a young child who had just been given a toy or something. Like the smile on her face was so childlike, but so happy. So happy. And she looked like that you could do anything at this point, and it wouldn't make any difference. As far as she was concerned, her hand in this bead bag was her home and permanent shelter. And she didn't take her hand out of the bead bag for the rest of the time we were there. This was what she was waiting for. Just keeping her hand in the bead bag. And she immediately started chanting. You know, she's in a room with one other person, but this doesn't. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And she was just chanting. And before that, someone had brought a Maha garland. Now, did you notice what she was doing with this garland yesterday? She was so reverential towards this garland because it was on Gopi Vallabha. The petals were falling off. And it took her about 15, 20 minutes. But she was getting each petal because it was so valuable to her. And she was gathering it all together. She's moving very slowly with her hands. She was just gathering the petals, keeping them all together. And then whenever petals had been fallen from the garland, she had to gather that, and she collected it and put it inside a napkin, and she kept it right here, like to her heart. And she had the garland on her lap. And she had a little package of tulsi. I don't know how she got the tulsi, but she kept on opening it. And if anything fell out, she was very, very careful, even the slightest piece. And she took about 15 minutes with that, just very meticulously protecting tulsi. So she's very, very, Krishna conscious. And as I said, that nothing un-Krishna conscious would come out of her mouth. Even for the few times that she spoke, it was always very Krishna conscious. And she said yesterday also, right, one of the nurses, she had just come on duty, and she went over and she said, Edith. She calls her name is Edith. She said, Edith, so I'm a nurse on duty tonight, and my name is Jeanette, and I'll write my name here on the board. And she wrote, and she came back and she looked at Isha, and Isha just looked at her and said, can you say Hare? And now say Krishna. And Jeanette, she said, oh, I've heard about you. Her fame is being spread throughout the whole hospital. It was just like the first day when I was there. One therapist had come over, and she was going to take Isha away for her therapy. And Isha looked up with a very serious look in her face and said, are you vegetarian? Like very challenging. And the woman was really, she took it very seriously. She was a 60, 65-year-old woman. And she took this challenge very seriously, and she had to immediately defend. Because she felt like that somebody was really putting her on the spot. And she said, well, to tell you the truth, I try not to eat red meat. Are you people vegetarians? And we said yes, and Isha said yes. And she said, well, it's difficult. There's certain things they say you need protein. Where do you get protein? And then Damodar started telling her about how to get protein. And then she said, well, yes, I think I'm going to have to become more serious about this. And then as she was leaving, she said, she said something like, you people are vegetarians, it's very, very good. I can understand the world needs people like you who are nonviolent. And Isha, just by her one challenge, already changed this woman's approach to how she was going to eat in the future. And that's what she was doing. And in fact, as soon as she did this, Sandy, who's known her for 15 years, and she claims she's not a devotee, this woman Sandy, but every day she would go and see Isha and helped her. Every single day she would go when she was living in Hyannis. She's since moved, and she doesn't go every day now. And she knows Isha. As soon as she heard Isha say, are you vegetarian? She clapped her hands. She said, that's the Isha I know. She was so happy. She saw that this is the Isha who's not going to let anybody slip away without getting something about Krishna, being exposed to something about Krishna consciousness, prepared to challenge and prepared to tell others about Krishna. And this was Prabhupada's teaching. Yare deka tarikaha Krishna upadesh, amara gyara guna haritara idesh. Is that to tell everyone about Krishna. So I've been thinking so much about this. And I'm seeing how the devotee gets the protection of Krishna. I mean, here's somebody who suffered, it was a very severe stroke. And she can't remember most things except that which is connected. Her life has become so simplified. It's so simplified, such a way that now the only thing she thinks about or worries about, or she has nothing else to worry about because all these other things, I can't complain. She's satisfied with everything. Everything. I can't complain. She can't complain.
My dad had a stroke.
Huh?
My father had a stroke many years ago, and all he did was complain. He's still complaining about it. It's like 15 years ago or something.
Girl, she's not complaining. She never says another one complaint comes out of her mouth. and she's not a care, and she doesn't have to worry. She's not worrying about anything because it's nothing to complain about. She's not worrying about anything. She doesn't think about it. Huh? Forgot everything. She doesn't even know where she lived. The caseworker had to come speak to me and to Sandy. Because when the caseworker sat down, tried to find out, where do you live, who's your family? She has no family. The caseworker couldn't get anything. She couldn't remember. But anything is connected to Krishna. And Krishna says, I'm there within the heart. From me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Krishna is there. He's acting in such a way to bring about, as we say, we oftentimes say, Nahabakama Nashasti Prativaya Navajite Swapama Pyasya Dhamisa Trayate Mahatobayat. That in this endeavor there's no loss or diminution. And a little advancement in this path protects one from the most dangerous type of fear. What is the most dangerous type of fear? To forget Krishna. It's the most dangerous type of fear. If we forget Krishna, then we're in a very fearful situation. Just as we oftentimes give the example that for the devotee is like the kitten who gets picked up by the cat. When the kitten comes, and when the cat comes to pick up the kitten, the cat opens her mouth and picks up the kitten and takes the kitten away, and the kitten feels completely sheltered. There's no fear in the heart of this kitten because this is my mother. But when the cat opens her mouth and shows her teeth to the rat, the rat has a completely different perspective. It's the same mouth, same cat, same teeth. But the rat doesn't think this is my mother coming to take me home. And in the same way, when a devotee has to give up this body, this source of fear, because for the one who's situated in forgetfulness, then it's a very abrupt removal from all those things that we've absorbed our consciousness in, and because we've invested so much energy in those thoughts, which are simply only connected to the body or connected to our external activities, but we haven't sufficiently connected ourselves with that which is eternal, then to be removed from everything external is very fearful. It's difficult. So much so, there's a description is given in the Bhagavatam that the Yamadutas, they come to extract the living entity from the body because the living entity doesn't want to leave it. And because they're so much attached to it and identified with it, the cremation is recommended so that it doesn't hover about, simply want to stay in and try to extract pleasure within that same body that he's identified so much, the soul's identified with. But for one who's cultivated remembrance of Krishna, who's the supreme eternal, and his activities, which are eternal, and has associated himself, herself, or the soul, with Krishna by remembrance, by discussions, by chanting, then it's like the kitten. no fear at all. So Krishna is there within the heart, and he protects one from that most dangerous type of fear, which is to forget. Because if one forgets, one has to come back. And if one remembers, Anta Kali Chmanmeva, Krishna says, whoever at the end of this life quits his body, remembering me alone, he once attains my nature. What attaining Krishna's nature? What is that nature? It's eternal. That's Krishna's nature. It's freed from distress, freed from hunger and thirst, freed from all kinds of material calamities. That's Krishna's nature. And that nature is our nature. So Krishna acts from within the heart. I was listening to a lecture in Hartford not long ago. One devotee was asking Srila Prabhupada the question. He said, he's quoting the verse, Ishwara Sava Bhutanam Ishwara Arjuna Tishtati, where Krishna says, I am seated within the heart and I'm directing the wanderings of all living beings who are as seated on a machine made of material energy. So he asked the question, if Krishna is directing all the wanderings, then what is our will? What do we do? Should we just accept if Krishna is directing our wanderings, then why do we do anything? Krishna is just going to direct us anyway. So, and Prabhupada was answering. He said that yes, Krishna is directing everyone. He said, but you've forgotten one other verse in Bhagavad Gita. Yeyatamam prapajante tang sataiva bhajamyaham. He says, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So he says, for those who surrender to Krishna, Krishna directs in one way. And for those who don't surrender to Krishna, Krishna directs in a different way. But Krishna is directing everyone. So he made the point very clear that yes, Krishna is in the heart and he's directing. For those who make the effort to remember him, then Krishna makes the effort to help him come to him. Huh? They're making the efforts. They're remembering that Krishna is there within my heart. I will try to speak about Krishna to please him. I will try to remember him to please him. I will try to chant his names to please him. I will hear about him because it's pleasing to him. And Krishna, he is the super soul. He's witness. He is the witness and he gives sanction. And therefore, because he's there within our heart and he knows everything. He knows our desires, what we've done, what we want to do. And when he sees what we want to do, something to please him, we take one step to him. Krishna takes 10 steps to us, as Prabhupada would say. Or I was oftentimes given the example, 2 birds seated on the tree. One bird is enjoying the fruits, the other bird is observing, witnessing, waiting for the enjoying bird to turn to him. Turn means that there's some dictation. And that dictation sometimes is in the form of conscience. Sometimes it's in the form of, it's not only dictation of what to do positively, but sometimes Krishna will tell this, don't do this. And we can't hear it because we're too attached. And Prabhupada even says in one lecture, I think it might have even been the same lecture, but in one lecture Prabhupada says, he gives the example, just like a child who's so persistent, can't do anything without the sanction of the parent. But by his persistence, the parent finally yields to the child's persistence, says, okay, do it. But Prabhupada says, but at your own risk. At your own risk. That means, all right, I'll protect you, but because of your persistence, you can do it, but you have to do it at your own risk. I can't be responsible for the consequences. So Krishna is helping us. He's dictating. And for those who are always endeavoring in that way, trying to bend their will towards Krishna's will, towards the will of the devotees, towards the will of Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna's not going to just come right out and just open the path to us. We also have independence and we have to move also towards him. It's not that he's just going to spread out the red carpet and say, here we go. It's all open, go back. He'll remove the obstacles, but we have to bend our will towards him, and then he helps us. Then he says, okay. But if we turn the wrong way and say, well, it's okay, Krishna, I know, but not now. I still bending this way. Resisting this way. Then Krishna says, okay, at your own risk. So he's directing. He's directing everyone. But for those who are always endeavoring, then Krishna says, I direct them in such a way that they can come to me. And I remove all obstacles. This is Krishna. Therefore, we have to also, we're very much dependent upon association of devotees of the Lord, association by hearing, by seeing the beautiful form of the deity of the Lord, which gives us a glimpse of the inspiration, hope, faith, everything required. And we see examples of like our Mother Isha, whose glories will be chanted throughout the three worlds, of just Mother Isha, who just wouldn't speak about anything except Krishna. Krishna is benedicting her. Someone may say, oh, why can you say such a thing? She had a stroke. But she's not obstructed in any way in her Krishna consciousness. No way. She's just... Now, people, we have to get together and we have to have discussions about Isha's future, but there's two parts to this discussion. Because, she may require constant care. And this is being discussed, what's going to happen when she's released from the hospital, where is she to go to have constant care. Potentially she could endanger herself, according to the doctors, because she can't relate, she doesn't know how to answer a phone, she doesn't know what stairs are, it's just these things. But that's one part of of Isha's future. But as far as she's in Krishna's hands, her future's very bright. And I pray that I can someday be as Krishna conscious as my god sister, Mother Isha. And that when she goes back to Godhead, she'll leave the door open for me. And won't forget me, because this woman is just such a wonderful example for me and for anyone who hears her glories and gets the opportunity to see her. So there's much more I could say, but I just wanted to try to stick to the essence of this verse and relate it to my experiences, at least in this past few days that I've gone and associated with her. And if anyone else wishes to see her, especially those who know her, the doctor would like her to see devotees that she knows and she'll remember, to maybe jolt some memory. There's nothing wrong with jolting that kind of memory to remember devotees. So she can be seen. She's in the hospital, but for I don't know for how long they'll keep her. But she's in the rehabilitation hospital of the Cape and the Islands in East Sandwich, Massachusetts. And visiting hours are from 1 to 8. And she seems to be the most popular person on the floor. Especially when I heard the word nurse say, oh, I've heard a lot about you. I guess she's not the first person Isha's challenged to chant Hare Krishna. So, any questions or comments? Or if not, maybe we should probably go to our next stage of our program. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.